The largest fines in NBA history. The NBA has been through a lot throughout the years. We've seen brawls, fans heckling, racial slurs, and so much more. But all this doesn't compare to teams who cheat in the league. The largest fines that have been sent out in the league were to billionaires who knew better and did stupid and regretful things. Keep watching to see the largest fines in NBA history and what the fines are for. Mark Stevens, Golden State Warriors investor, 2019. Mark Stevens, a Golden State Warriors investor in 2019, pushed Toronto Raptors guard Kyle Lowry on an out-of-bounds play during the 2019 finals and was fined $500,000. Kyle Lowry said that there was no place in the NBA for Mark Stevens' behavior after he was shoved by Stevens during Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Lowry spoke to reporters after the incident and thanked the Warriors and the NBA for their response and punishment to Stevens. The Warriors quickly barred Stevens from attending any more finals games, but then the NBA and Warriors later announced that Stevens would be suspended for 1 season and fined $500,000. "It's just what our league is about, protecting the players," Lowry said. "Like I said last night, there's no room in our game for that." There were reports that Stevens had cursed Lowry out. Lowry confirmed that Stevens was repeatedly telling him to go F yourself. "It's not a good look for the ownership group that they have," Lowry said. "I know the Warriors' majority owner Joe Lacob. Those guys are great guys. The ownership that they have that I know, they're unbelievable guys. But a guy like Stevens showing his true class, he shouldn't be part of our league." Lowry thought he handled the situation the best that he could. When asked about how he kept his composure, Lowry said he wanted to set an example for all of the kids and be there for his team when they needed him the most. "Understanding at the moment that my team needed me, understanding that there are plenty of fans and kids in the world watching this game, and me being a grown man and having kids myself, and I'm a grown man, my kids could always go back and see that. Understanding that I have 2 young children. To be able to hold myself to a certain standard, which I do, I hold myself to a high standard, I gotta make sure I uphold that. That's a big thing for me, is being a guy that upholds himself to a high standard, and never letting guys like Stevens get under your skin." Lowry called Stevens' behavior bullcrap, and said that he might have reacted differently if it weren't the NBA Finals. "Things could have been a lot different if I reacted in a different way, or did something different, or put hands on him, or did anything of that nature," Lowry said. Everyone in the Warriors organization commended Lowry for how he handled the situation. LeBron James called for more severe punishment for Stevens. At one point, a report said that Stevens could be forced to sell his stake in the team. Denver Nuggets New York Knicks Brawl, 2006. This wasn't the malice at the palace, but this Nuggets and Knicks brawl in 2006 will be remembered forever. On December 16th, 2006, the Knicks and Nuggets had a huge brawl that violated plenty of rules and spilled into the crowd at the arena. There hasn't been a brawl quite like this again after the suspensions and fines that were handed out. The brawl began after a hard foul in the final seconds of a blowout loss. The Nuggets left their best players on the floor in a game that was already won, and the Knicks didn't appreciate this. Bench players were waiting to check in when Knicks guard Marty Collins hit J.R. Smith hard on a fast break. Nate Robinson of the Knicks was also in the game at the time, and was quick to get in on the action. "For what they did as in keeping guys in, I knew a foul was going to come," Robinson was quoted as saying after the game. "A hard one, because we're not going to let guys keep dunking on us when they're up 20 and they have their starters in." When Marty Collins committed the hard foul, J.R. Smith reacted, and then Robinson reacted, and then everyone reacted. It was a full brawl. Collins was never looked at as a dirty player, so this had to stem from Isaiah Thomas being mad about an unwritten rule where the Nuggets should have had bench players in to finish the game. The blame is on Isaiah Thomas, because without the pettiness, Carmelo Anthony wouldn't have chimed in with a punch to Marty Collins' face. Once the refs couldn't contain what was going on, the fight broke out into the seating, where fans could touch the players and get involved. Carmelo Anthony was the league's leader in scoring, so everyone was extremely interested to see how the NBA would react to this brawl after the Pistons and Pacers brawled 2 years earlier. David Stern, the NBA commissioner at the time, gave out $500,000 fines for each franchise. Smith and Robinson got suspended for 10 games each, while Marty Collins and Jared Jeffries got 6 and 4 game suspensions respectively. Carmelo Anthony got 15 games for his punch. This was Stern making sure we'd never have a brawl like this again, and it's worked. It is our obligation to take the strongest possible steps to avoid such failures in the future, and to make a statement to all who follow the game of basketball that we understand our obligations and take them seriously. Accordingly, I am issuing penalties listed below, and will take the occasion to set forth some of the considerations that have influenced my decision here, and will continue to guide us as we seek to demonstrate our determination that the NBA and its players be viewed as standing for the best in sports. Mark Cuban, Dallas Mavericks owner, 2018. The NBA fined Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban $600,000 for his comments about tanking during a podcast with Julius Erving. NBA's current commissioner, Adam Silver, said the fine was for public statements detrimental to the NBA. Cuban was on for a 30-minute interview where he said that he met with some of his players and told them, "Losing is our best option." Cuban was trying to prove to Erving that he believes he is a transparent owner. "I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I just had dinner with a bunch of our guys the other night," Cuban said, "and here we are. We weren't competing for the playoffs. I was like, look, losing is our best option." Adam would hate to be hearing that, but at least I sat down and I explained it to them. And I explained what our plans are going to be this summer, that we're not going to tank again. This is like a year and a half of tanking. That was too brutal for me. The Mavericks had gotten rid of washed-up veterans in Darren Williams and Andrew Bogut near the trade deadline, and were able to draft rookie point guard Dennis Smith Jr. after the season concluded. Of course, Smith turned out to be a trading piece to land Kristaps Porzingis from the Knicks to pair with Luka Doncic, who was drafted the following season after Smith. Dallas was 18-40 and tied for the fewest wins in the NBA at the All-Star break when Cuban did the interview. Cuban was fined $500,000 in 2002 for criticizing Ed Rush. He said he wouldn't hire Rush to manage a Dairy Queen. Cuban has been fined more than $2 million due to his critique of referees. Cuban agreed that he earned his fine from the NBA after his interview with Dr. J. "I earned it," Cuban told the Associated Press. "I got excited talking to Dr. J and said something I shouldn't have." The fine came right after the Mavericks franchise was accused of having a hostile workplace for women in a Sports Illustrated report. The report made allegations of inappropriate sexual conduct by former team president Terdema Osiri. Cuban at the time said that he was embarrassed by the allegations and said that he would improve the club's work environment. Donald Sterling, Los Angeles Clippers owner, 2014. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the National Basketball Association, held a news conference to announce the results of the investigation on 2 voice recordings that were from Clippers owner Donald Sterling, which were offensive, hateful, and very concerning. He made the decision to fine Sterling $2.5 million for his behavior. "The hateful opinions are those of Mr. Sterling," Adam Silver said. "The views are deeply offensive and harmful. That they came from an NBA owner only heightens the outrage." Silver announced that he had banned Sterling for life from NBA and Clipper events, and that he would also be forced to sell the Clippers. Owner Dan Gilbert of the Cleveland Cavaliers agreed with what Silver was doing. "Commissioner Silver has made the right moves in response to this unfortunate, absurd spectacle," Gilbert tweeted. Even Michael Jordan chimed in applauding Silver for the ban of Sterling. Michael Jordan released a statement saying, "I applaud NBA Commissioner Adam Silver's swift and decisive response today. He sent a powerful message that there can be zero tolerance for racism and hatred in the NBA. I'm confident that the league, our players, and our fans will move on from this stronger and more unified." The Los Angeles Clippers website read, "We are one." The Clippers also wanted nothing to do with Sterling after the tapes were released and revealed. Sterling was the league's longest tenured owner and had an estimated net worth of about $2 billion. The penalties were announced just 3 days after the scandal broke and were extremely harsh, but warranted. Silver said that the league investigation found that Sterling was the person on the audio tapes that were released over the weekend. Some couldn't believe the news. Sterling eventually came clean that it was him on the tapes. Silver continued to prove to the NBA that this is the kind of stuff that won't be tolerated. "This league is far bigger than any one owner, any one coach, and any one player," said Silver. It was said that Sterling's $2.5 million fine was donated to organizations dedicated to anti-discrimination and tolerance efforts that was selected by the NBA and Players Association. "This has all happened in 3 days, and so I am hopeful that there will be no long-term damage to the league and to the Clippers organization," Silver said. "But as I said earlier, I'm outraged. So I certainly understand other people's outrage. This will take some time and appropriate healing will be necessary." Sterling's comments were released by TMZ. This started a movement where many sponsors terminated or suspended their business dealings with the team. Individual deals with players like Chris Paul and Blake Griffin weren't affected because they didn't hold the same views as Sterling did. Minnesota Timberwolves, 2000. The Minnesota Timberwolves plan to sign Joe Smith to an illegal contract that could cost them $3.5 million in future draft picks before the 1999 lockout-shortened season. Joe Smith was the #1 overall pick of the Golden State Warriors in 1995. Smith had a solid beginning to his career as a pro with the Golden State Warriors, but his production lagged when he was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers in 1998. After the 1999 NBA lockout, Smith became a free agent, and of course was a hot commodity. He signed a 1-year, $1.75 million deal in Minnesota, which was well below market value. This would allow the team to make other moves that offseason. It was a weird decision by Smith, since he could have signed an $80 million extension with the Warriors prior to being traded. Smith and the Timberwolves had an under-the-table agreement in place, where Smith would sign 3 one-year deals for minimal money. This would allow the Timberwolves to acquire his bird rights, which would allow them to go over the salary cap to re-sign him. Smith would have then been rewarded with a huge contract that would have paid him up to $86 million. This arrangement was very illegal, and once the NBA found out, Minnesota was screwed. According to J.A. Donde, the entire plan was blown open when agents Eric Fleischer and Andrew Miller parted ways. Miller kept Smith and Kevin Garnett as clients, and that prompted a lawsuit that led to the dealing of the Timberwolves' illegal agreement with Smith. Before the start of the 2000 offseason, Smith had signed the third of his 3 short-term deals with the Timberwolves for 1 year and $2.5 million. Once the league realized what was going on, the punishment came. The Timberwolves were fined $3.5 million and had to let go of their first-round draft picks for the next 5 years. The team's 2003 pick was eventually restored, however. Smith's contract was voided, along with the other 2 small contracts, and the Wolves couldn't retain bird rights with Smith. Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor was suspended through August 31, 2001, and VP of Basketball Operations Kevin McHale took a leave of absence through July 31st. To this day, McHale denies any knowledge of the illegal deal. "I haven't read a contract in 4 or 5 years, he said at the time, but also said that these contracts weren't uncommon. "There are 8 to 10 teams that do this all the time. They're just good at it. We're bad." Smith left the Wolves for 1 season when he signed a 1-year deal with the Detroit Pistons. However, he returned to the Timberwolves for $34 million over 6 years, but was traded after 2 seasons to the Milwaukee Bucks. Smith was traded 2 more times before the end of that deal, including from the Denver Nuggets back to the Sixers in an Allen Iverson trade.